acknowledging and thanking all of your leadership. I know there's been a significant turnover in that leadership in the last 6 months. And speaking for myself, but I'm sure on behalf of my colleagues, I've been incredibly impressed with how all of you have hit the ground running to address a myriad of really complex and challenging needs in your respective communities. I look forward to these discussions, as I know all of my colleagues do as well, as it reminds us that there are so many unique sets of challenges within each of our communities. What we want to do after today's session moving forward, actually, do we need a countdown? Sorry, I jumped right in. Okay, thank you. To make sure that we don't rush through these presentations moving forward and to give each of you appropriate and long enough runway to be able to share the concerns in your communities, we're going to not have all 5 of you present at future brown bag lunches, but split it up so that we have a longer conversation. But for today's session, we are going to focus on the 5. So we ask each of you to speak for about 5 minutes or so on high-level issues that you would like to bring forward, but leaving enough time for Q&A at the end is obviously important. So with that, Ms. Kassiri, I turn it over to you to provide a little bit of an overview, and then we'll go in the order that you decide.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just a heads up that Luisa Cardona is still on maternity leave, taking care of her new baby, so she's not going to be here today. So hopefully she'll be there next time. But we have the rest of the RSC directors here, and we did send you their monthly reports this morning. So that's all I was going to cover. So we can maybe start with Pete Fostelman.
Good afternoon, council members and your staff. Thanks so much for having us today. We appreciate this as our first outreach as the new Regional Services Director team. I want to again thank the council and also thank your staff and let you know, which I know you already know this, the great staff members that you have. They've been extremely helpful to me as well as the other RSC directors as we've been sitting in these seats for a few months now. You have a very lucky team, or you are lucky to have that team. I'm not free, but I didn't know I was going to speak a little bit about Mid-County just on a few topics because Jody Finkelstein and I are sitting in for Louisa as sort of acting director, so I'm not sure.
That would be great, Pete, yes.
Okay. So a few things that are important to the Bethesda Chevy Chase Citizens Advisory Board. I spoke to our chair about these things, Kristen Nelson, and really business development in downtown, not only Bethesda, but Friendship Heights, White Flint, and the Pike District are very important. We've made a lot of progress with the various master plans and then with the various chambers of commerce in those areas and with their members on moving things forward, but there's always room for improvement with the business districts. Number 2 would be support for the police officers in District 2. The safety is extremely important to the community, and that is one of their top 3 priorities for the CAB there. And then lastly, but not least, would be the formation and support of the Pike District Partnership, which is a new organization. It actually is an official 501c3. It's actually a C6. And they will be much like a business improvement district or a community activist group, some kind of hybrid of those, where they will be kind of babysitting the Pike District and making sure that things move forward, much like the Bethesda Partnership does. So they will be handling marketing, community outreach, coordinating with the White Flint Downtown Advisory Committee and other members of the community to come together and make the Pike District a better place. The Friends of White Flint will be merging into this new group. That's not to say they won't exist anymore, but they will be a new group, and the majority of the members who are Friends of White Oak will be involved with this new Pike District Partnership. And then I just want to let the council know that this morning was the kickoff for the new Marriott Hotel in downtown Bethesda, and it was a great turnout. And the headquarters, which is right next door, the international headquarters, that kickoff will be later in a few months, and I'm sure all of you will have an invitation to that event. And if you have any questions about what's going on at the new headquarters or the new hotel, please let me know. Before I move on, are there any questions about BCC, or should I move into Mid-County?
Why don't we do all 5 presentations and then we'll save Q&A at the end so that nobody gets more time than others. It's equal. So it's equal.
Okay, thank you, President Alvarez. So the Mid-County Regional Services Center, Jody Finkelstein and I have been working very closely with Louisa while she's been out on family leave. As a matter of fact, I spoke to Louisa just this morning about some other issues that we're working on together. And we've also been coordinating closely with the staff. They have an amazing staff. Crystal Ruiz, who's their urban district manager, has been extremely helpful, as well as the other staff members there. So one of the top, or the 3 top priorities, and speaking to Susanna Parker, who's their Citizens Advisory Board chair, is making sure that the Marion Fire Plaza is completed and that support continues from the council and executive for community activities at the plaza. The lighting and sound, which I know has been an outstanding issue for a while, it has been ordered and it will be installed. There's been a delay due to some supply issues because of COVID-19, but that will be installed as soon as possible. And then there are some other items I know some of you brought to my attention, such as the wayfinding signs and a few repairs to the stage, and that's going to be underway too. I've been coordinating with OMB on that to get that done. A second important issue out of 3 to their cab is, again, support for the police officers in District 4. Safety is a huge concern of the community, and they want to make that clear to the council that they understand that funding for the police department is important and continued support. And then lastly but not least, pedestrian safety and walkability is a big issue, especially for downtown Wheaton. There has been a lack of that for many years, as I know Council Navarro can relate to that. The community has been working very hard with the folks over at planning, as well as your staff, to make things better. There are improvements being made, but there's a lot more work to be done. And with the new headquarters of Park and Planning, as well as some of the other county agencies right there in downtown Wheaton, it's bringing this issue more attention, and things are going to get done. So those are the 3 things for Mid-County.
Thank you. Jacob, you want to go next?
Certainly. Good afternoon. Just as Pete had done, want to appreciate all of you and your staff as well for the wonderful partnership over the past several months. I have 4 topics, though I'm happy to elaborate on anything else which was in the report. Try and keep things thematic and swap out particular community events and related issues from month to month. Something that's been consistent has certainly been around the conversation and the actions relating to public safety. And so it's been, though a challenge, a really wonderful way to engage with police across departments, our business community, Progress Place Working Group, and of course residents on this conversation. The Urban District staff has been great in contributing to some of the engineering enhancements. If any of you have driven through the CSX tunnel recently when the sun goes down, it is quite a bit more illuminated than just even a few months ago, and that's really due to a partnership not only with the Department of Transportation, but also the Economic Development Corporation around a brewery district initiative, and is something which will help ensure safety. The particular conversations that I've had with business owners along Georgia Avenue in Fenton Village have been really productive, and I appreciate the partnership with many of them. I'd like to specifically thank Councilmember Joando for bringing me into an early conversation, and several of the meetings that we've had since then not only detail their participation in ensuring safety in the downtown, but also convey that their patrons are feeling a bit better as well. And as the seasons begin to change and we see, I think, probably a reemergence of more young people and more activity on the plaza, we have a lot of festivals scheduled, and just naturally with a warmer climate. Last night, the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board welcomed a conversation with a lot of youth-serving nonprofits, and so I'm happy to be hosting a brown bag in the weeks to come, so that youth voice is really present as we think about their participation and their safety and their involvement in the downtown. Newell Street is part of the Shared Streets program, and for those of you who spend time in Silver Spring, probably familiar. There are really two main groups who have been interacting with myself, the Urban District staff, as well as Councilmember Hucker's office, and I want to appreciate Upneat Atwall, who's been very engaged in a conversation there, along with colleagues at Department of Transportation and Park and Planning. In short, there's some proponents of a prolonged closure or permanent closure of that street, who really are advocating on behalf of improved pedestrian and cyclist safety and accessibility. And then there are some residents who live adjacent and who are, quite frankly, not so pleased and would like to see the street opened imminently. And they cite some noise complaints and having smoke go into their apartments. And so it's been an interesting situation to work through, and have brought in other colleagues across departments, of course, Park and Planning, and look forward to actually bringing some leaders in both sides, both perspectives to the table in the coming weeks as well. Third issue is around our Arts and Entertainment District. We're going through a redesignation process, which has been really exciting and educational to get to learn a bit more about the plethora of wonderful arts organizations and venues here in the downtown. And so today the State Arts Council is visiting, and Elizabeth Gallarusi is probably outside the front door, taking them around to some of those establishments. And lastly, I'll end with the Purple Line in two realms. One, again, if you've been in downtown or in the region, the construction disruption to businesses and to walkability has just been really challenging. I'd like to shout out Carson Henry's leadership in liaising with our colleagues at the state, and just say that in the early spring, we will have a community action team walking group led by folks from the Purple Line, but also engaging the adjacent businesses and welcoming in community members as well. The second part of my Purple Line update involves a workforce development working group, and that work continues. Thus far, there's been a focus on ensuring that immigrant populations are not forgotten in the development along the corridor, and specifically engaging undocumented residents in workforce development initiatives. And the last meeting was around digital literacy. So it's something that has connected my prior role in youth and workforce development education to this current role here with the county. And happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Greg, you want to go next?
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much, council members, for having us here. I'll make mine brief so we can ask for questions, but we've seen a major increase in crime in the up counties, particularly in the Germantown, Gaithersburg area. But last night, 95 people, and that tells you a lot on Zoom, came out to our Citizen Advisory Committee. And I'm happy to report that with the great leadership that Councilmember Rice and Councilmember Katz led, along with our Chief of Police, Marcus Jones, it's calmed down a little. The community feels a little more safer. It was a 2-hour meeting where the council members stayed for the whole 2 hours, and the chief, and they talked about what they plan to do to going forward to try to prevent some of this crime, but also working hard to actually arrest people. And I want to just take 2 incidents that happened that I'm so pleased with what the police have been able to do, but also with our HOC, which I put in my report, because I see new leadership, and that new leadership is making a tremendous difference. So the first one was that the tremendous, terrible stabbing of the young worker at the T-Mobile basically a week ago today. And fortunately, the police were able to work very closely with the community, and the victim, before he died, gave a name that helped us tremendously, and they were able to make an arrest. But where HOC comes in on that one, and all the others I want to talk about, is the family, of course, the next day wanted to have a prayer vigil, and they were really shocked. So we reached out first to the mayor of Gaithersburg and the mall personnel to let them come there to pray, and then walk over to where the young man lived, which was Cider Mill. And at the time that the citizens first asked the operating or the manager, they were sort of hesitant. But we called the new leadership, Ms. Karine Brown, and immediately she said, yes, they could use that soccer field. The same thing happened with the plum guard, which was a few months ago. But we wanted to say that the victim's family was being harassed by members in the community because they didn't want their children to testify in court. So HOC was able to do something to me was like almost impossible within about 2 months to move that family to another safe location. And then the main issue, which last night, and Councilmember Rice spoke very eloquently, and Councilmember Katz stopped the meeting and asked for a prayer right there in the middle of the meeting, which was really a tremendous thing for the 95 people. And that was of the 17-year-old boy that was brutally murdered, beaten very badly, stabbed, and left in the woods to die for 2 days before they found him. And his mother, we let her speak for 20 minutes, was very passionate. But what happened after that, young people from the school, he attended Northwest High School, got on the call too, and they spoke. And they spoke about bullying, they spoke about other things. And so the bottom line is with that town hall meeting, which was our regular Upper County Advisory Board meeting, the community feels a little safer. There's still work to do. And in closing, you all know yesterday there was a murder-suicide where a man killed a woman here in Germantown. She's the mother of 5 kids, and he killed himself. But I got a phone call this morning from Ms. Brown from HOC to say that was a HOC lady that was killed. Never had any problems, anything. It was a man that did it. So all that was saying, with all this happening, we need to partner with the community. We need to partner when appropriate with HOC. And also, of course, with the council, which all of you are on. So I'll wait for questions after everyone finishes. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Jeru, last but not least.
Thank you, Fariba. Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to start these types of meetings with the council. So I do look forward to it. I have just 2 major areas I just wanted to bring to this meeting. One is our efforts in continuing to work to advance development and other community initiatives in East County. But first, I would like to announce something exciting: the hiring of the White Oak Planning Manager. His name is Cicero Sales, who comes to us with about 30 years of public-private partnerships, transportation, land use, development, and guiding very, very, very successful projects, including some in the Prince George's County National Harbor, as well as the beach tree development. His background, both local, national, and international, includes consensus building among factions in land use and in community economic development programs. So we are very happy, and I do plan to work with Ken to see if the possibilities or the county council members would like to meet him in person. So I just wanted to make sure we get that announcement. But this individual, along with my office, will be working very closely to advance some of the developments, many of the developments in East County, which actually includes the White Oak Shopping Center, which along with the White Oak Apartments project, which was proposed for 390 units, including 49 MPDUs on Broadbirch. They're in the preliminary site plan application process. So we're very excited with those 2 projects, one at Tech Road and US 29, the other one on Broadbirch right behind the Home Depot. It's an apartment community, so some very exciting news in that area. The Hillandale Gateway project at 495 and New Hampshire is also with the preliminary site planning stage, and we're working very closely with the Duffy companies to continue to help advance that project. The New Hampshire BRT study, the formation of the Citizens Advisory Committee is in process, and that, along with a number of other transportation improvement initiatives in East County, is in the bucket list of projects that we're going to be overseeing. Many of you are also aware of the conclusion of the Montgomery College feasibility study for East County Montgomery College expansion. The community is very excited about this, and the county executive proposed funding, and we are very, very excited for the opportunities to provide broader post-secondary education opportunities in this part of Montgomery County. Along with that, we are working very closely with the police to really expand, enhance its youth and community engagement through midnight basketball clinics or the positive youth development programs at the rec center in White Oak, as well as engaging the police department, the 3rd district in particular, in our ongoing community building placemaking events throughout the region. So we have a long list of programs that we will continue to guide in the next fiscal year. On the workforce development front, thanks to the great leadership from the executive director and the workforce board leadership, we continue to develop and engage measurable equity initiatives. And there is a long list of new exciting programs addressing the needs of adults, youth, and displaced workers in Montgomery County, and particularly with a new focus on underserved communities in Montgomery County. We have special employment education training programs for immigrants, which are designed to provide specialty services and support to refugees and new immigrants, adults with professional development, vocational training, support services, barrier remediation, occupational and entrepreneurial skills. So these are very, very important programs as we welcome new Americans in our county to the workforce development. Other programs that are on the offering here includes new programs for youth and young adults. We continue to build more and stronger partnerships with very skilled, experienced providers, including the LAYC, Identity, and in particular the Montgomery County Public Schools. This summer, we propose to increase, for example, the Summer Rise program from about 600 to 800 youth, and also increase the stipends with a very special focus on making sure that the program is more inclusive, and we also targeting communities of color and underserved communities throughout the county. We hope to get the mobile employment van because of the issues with the economy. We're having difficulty getting that van delivered, but this van will really help us to get into many of those underserved neighborhoods in terms of just deploying some of our employment resources. We have programs including the Workforce Recovery Networks. These are grants for nonprofits, expanding the higher centers, for example, the one in East County tied to the Montgomery College Gilchrist Center and the library programs in that part of the county, grant relief for onboarding workers for local businesses affected by the pandemic, but also very, very critical is engaging our nonprofits as well as our hubs and other providers in our communities to expand workforce development case management type services for individuals and families impacted by the pandemic. A pre-bid for this program was held earlier in February with a February 28th deadline for the applications. And we do have a very large number of applicants for that program. So there's just so much exciting things happening in the workforce development front, and some of the programs that hopefully will bring about a change in East County. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you to all five of you. Those were impressive presentations, definitely some themes throughout of commonality among the various jurisdictions, but really appreciate your leadership. Just want to give two thanks really quick, and then we'll turn it over to colleagues, and I'll articulate the list of who's in the queue so far. I do want to thank all of you personally for helping to carry out the very productive sessions on Thrive. I'll just note that's a great model moving forward. I think this council would really benefit moving forward of leveraging the contacts and resources that you all have established over many years in a way that I think is pretty productive. And I've always been very impressed with the interaction between my district colleagues and their respective offices, who do an incredible job every day to respond to I don't know how they do it, responding to constituent calls. And so I think leveraging those connections. And related to that, we are going to have a conversation about this. The 5 regional service center districts were originally designed to correspond to the 5 council districts. We're going to have 7 soon. So we are going to, not now, but in the not too distant future, have a conversation about what that can and should look like moving forward, because I think it presents a real opportunity for the next leadership of this, legislative and executive, to provide more resources and support. And I think, as an example, you all are uniquely positioned for data gathering and all that means. And I think you guys can be one of those cross sections of the interaction of the data. We're seeing that right now in the food security space. We're working on establishing a robust system-wide program. And I think, in thinking about it, it doesn't fit perfectly in any one specific category of government. But like the council, many different constituencies come to all of you seeking advice or information, and you create a time and space, an authentic one for those, the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to get together. So just more to come on that, obviously, but I think it bears worth thinking about in the future for an extended discussion, and maybe even inviting you all at some point to participate in part of the council retreat to think through some of these things moving forward. So those are some 30,000-foot thoughts. All right, so I've got 3 colleagues in the queue so far, and colleagues, we're going to try to end by 1:40 so that we can transition to public hearings that start at 1:45. First, we're going to hear from Councilmember Rice, followed by Councilmember Navarro, and then Council Vice President Glass. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Council President and Director Williams. I just want to say thank you so much for that meeting last night. It was incredibly important, and I think, again, it represents exactly what we need to make sure that we're doing across this county, which is when we see these kind of issues that bubble up, we immediately respond to the community by making sure not only that we provide them with information that's important, but also make sure that we give them a forum to be able to just hear their voices and hear what suggestions, comments, thoughts that they have. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. You have certainly hit the ground running because coming out with something like this right out of the gate is just incredibly important to the community. And we've continued to hear positive feedback from folks and look forward to following up with you on some of those things. I did just want to ask, when it comes to some of the economic recovery, and this goes for, I guess, all of the folks on board, what is it that you're hearing from some of our businesses? I know that many have transitioned to different kinds of formats, whether it's restaurants, whether it's retailers, whatever the case may be. And I'm just curious as to what you're hearing from them now that we are post-masks and now that we have gotten past the surge, whether or not you're hearing that things have started to rebound, folks are feeling more comfortable. What is it that you're hearing from folks? And of course, that can go to anyone.
Okay. Mr. Rice, for me, for one, most of the businesses, particularly the folks who participated in the business assistance pandemic assistance programs. They're very, very appreciative of the county really standing up for small businesses. But most importantly, the programs that also benefits their employees. So that's very, very crucial. In terms of the county's leadership in really addressing the pandemic, which impacts the whole communities, including the business sector. So having that up-to-date information available to them, but is also having them connected to entities such as the regional office and or the standing entities, whether it's the chamber or small business network, where they could turn to for information and for assistance. And that's very, very, very crucial. But the need for assistance is much greater for them. And so therefore, I do think we need to take a little bit more time, take a step back and see how we also need to revamp structurally so that we could continue to remain to be there with the small businesses, because they hire individuals and those individuals we also focus on them in different arenas in terms of our service deliveries throughout each of those regions within the county.
Why don't we go in reverse order? Greg, why don't you go next, followed by Jacob and then Peter. Pete.
Okay. I would say, and of course, Councilmember Rice was with us 2 weeks ago when we leaders opened their new grocery store in Montgomery Village, and 250 some people lined up to come to that, and some at 4:30 in the morning. But I'm saying that to say is talking to the managers there and the owners, they're very excited about coming into Montgomery County. And in Germantown in particular, we just had a report at our Up-County Citizen Advisory Board last month. We're going to get some 800 to 1,000 new senior units there. There's a hotel that's coming. The people seem really upbeat, especially as relates to new businesses that will be starting over the next several years. So from what I'm hearing from our chambers here, the Gaithersburg, Germantown, but also the Clarksburg, which sort of merged into Gaithersburg, Germantown, they're optimistic about the future.
Great, and I have a little bit of a blend of Giroux and Greg's report with something extra. I think that, businesses are optimistic. There have been excitingly new restaurants announcing opening here in the downtown and in the Silver Spring region, but can't be tone deaf to the fact that much of the industry is going through a lot of what cross sectors are facing right now, which is a labor shortage and the fatigued staff. And so whether that be, in our breweries and our restaurants and some of our retail stores, simply the workforce is not keeping up or is making changes so rapidly that it is impacting retention and the offering of services. And so after 2 years of innovating and pivoting, I think that there is a bit of fatigue among many of our establishments, not just here in this region, but across the broader region.
Pete, anything to offer?
Sure. So as the others touched on, I think the grant program was so many people in the community are thankful for that, whether they have a home business or, a place in the community that's not their home. So many people, just unbelievable. I was involved in the beginning with Lawyer Boyer when they were rolling out these grant programs that you all had approved. And we got, from day one, we were getting a lot of thankful emails from folks. Two, I think with the streeteries are a huge deal to not only the restaurants, but several of the vendors and store owners, because, when someone comes to a restaurant to eat, they might shop before or after the eating, whether it's a restaurant or not. And so they like that. It also gives them the feeling of community and a place to kind of congregate with the same time feeling safe in terms of COVID or whatever's happening at the time. So they're very appreciative of the funding for the streeteries and would like to see them continue. I know we're working with Bethesda Urban Partnership and some of the developers for the Bethesda area ones. And I know that Jacob's got some things going on in Silver Spring with reference to streeteries. And then lastly, the thing I'm hearing is just a little bit of worry about safety in terms of the customers in the parking garages in terms of, theft or muggings, and also then the vendors themselves, the business owners are a little worried about, well, I don't believe it's happening a tremendous amount at the moment, but, the smash and grab thing I'm hearing about, folks are a little worried about that. And that's kind of it.
I'm going to interject really quick. I apologize, Councilmember Rice. Are you done? Thank you so much. Councilmember Navarro, who's got to jump on a call that starts in 3 minutes. Councilmember Navarro, please.
Appreciate it very much. Well, first, just thanks to everyone for just everything you've done. It's just been extraordinary. I was just curious, and maybe this is something that can be, responded in writing or maybe with the next meeting, but so it's clear that, we really want to have as much of an impact on each of our regions. And I can't help but notice that, and this has been going on for a while, when Jeru Bande does his reporting, there is just so much going on in the East County that really kind of checks all the boxes vis-a-vis everything we have identified as needs. And that area of the county, but it's the same type of situation in the mid-county, and I think probably in the up-county. And so I'm just curious, and I don't know if this is a conversation, perhaps for Ms. Kasiri, or are there like particular conversations among all the regional services directors about sort of I don't want to call it a template, but some sort of alignment, right? Because we know that even though there are unique needs, overall, there are some broad policy areas that we have all agreed to, but I'm not hearing as much. I mean, when I hear Jeru describe all of these things with, workforce development, the, redevelopment issues that are ongoing, we need to take, advantage of that, the partnerships, et cetera. I'm thinking, well, the same thing is needed in the mid-county, and, we've made some progress there, but obviously it's great to know that there's somebody there on the ground that has that ability to just really connect all those dots. So it's just curious, because there's definitely a mismatch between the extraordinary work that is going on in the East County and what I'm hearing from some of the other areas. And I know that we had a focus on the East County, it was like this zone situation, but I kept saying that, hey, that's great, but we do have to expand that holistic approach to other parts of the county where that's needed. Has that happened, or is this going to happen? Is this in the plan? Just generally, just wondering about that.
Thanks, Councilmember Navarro. Yes, we meet with all 5 RSC. When I say we, the CAO, all the 8 CAOs, special assistants, including Ken Hartman, we meet with RSC directors on a monthly basis. So in addition to review of the report, we discuss the thing. And the goal of that meeting is basically solely not focus on one area, but focus on those, as you just explained, cross-jurisdictional, the same themes, the issues that they can share information. And the focus is that. So maybe as far as the reports are written by 5 different individuals, but I can assure you, yes, we are discussing those. And in general, what we are hearing, that there are some needs that in some areas may be greater. So there are some certain things in East County that may not be similar in Bethesda, or Bethesda may have different issues. But yes, we are discussing those matters.
Right. No, and I appreciate that, Fariba, because, of course, we know that there are different needs, but I think we also have collectively identified some really important broad policy areas, so whether it's, workforce development, making sure that we have access to opportunities, making sure that we're creating jobs, making sure that we're looking at issues of pedestrian safety, connectivity. I think there are some broad policy areas that the council and the executive have agreed on. And again, maybe we can discuss this later, but I would just like to see how that template is kind of, being applied in those parts of the county where we know we do still have some of those gaps. I know for sure in the mid part of the county, we still have some of those gaps. I would just love to see that. And I do want to, express my appreciation for everyone. Thanks, shout out to Jeru also, who's helping me, host a job fair in Wheaton as well. But I just think that, especially as we're recovering from COVID, it would be awesome to just take another peek at how we are capitalizing on all of these types of models I'll close with this. I think it's awesome to, the difference between when I joined the council and what was lacking in East County, and now to know that there's all this activity happening is just really heartwarming and really exciting. So thank you so much, everyone, for everything. And I'm sorry I have to hop off for about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. A lot of light bulbs went off as you were describing that. All right, we've got Council Vice President Glass, followed by Councilmember Katz, and then Councilmember Hucker. Council Vice President Glass, and we're going to wrap up in 8 minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick. First off, Mr. Wims, I heard that yesterday's conversation at the Up County was a really impactful one. I had staff who attended that, and so also want to thank you, members of the Up County CAB, and then colleagues, Council Members Rice and Katz, for steering a really important and difficult conversation. So I appreciate all you did yesterday. I'm going to popcorn around real quick in just a few minutes. First off, Mr. Newman, curious if there's any updates on the individuals, the residents who were evacuated because of the Flower Branch fire that I know DHHS has been doing a lot of work to make sure that they're all housed.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but as of last week, I think it was all but 3 or 5 units had been rehoused. One of the primary concerns at the time was certainly transportation to and from places of work, and also for the children to and from school. DHHS has maintained contact with all of those families, particularly through navigators. And I can get a more detailed report back to you. It was something that we checked in about last week with Patrick Campbell, who is actually on parental leave, but he is still active and behind the scenes in ensuring that the rehousing of residents is moving forward.
Sure. I'll follow up with you. I appreciate that. Clearly, having people moved from Long Branch to Gaithersburg or points north of there really makes it difficult for them and their kids to get to school and work. So thank you for helping work through that. On the issue of homelessness, again, I guess I'll go to Mr. Fosselman or Ms. Kassiri, whoever is. I know a lot of you are helping with the Wheaton area and Mid-County. I've heard that there is an increase in individuals who are experiencing homelessness who are encamped, if I can use that word, on Marion Friar Plaza. Can you elaborate a little bit about that and what we're doing to mitigate it?
Did you want me to comment?
Yeah, please, yes.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Glass. I don't have a lot of details for you. I can certainly get more, but I have had conversations with the urban district manager, Crystal, and her staff. There are issues at the Marion Friar Plaza. The folks that are living there, for lack of better words, are very friendly. They're not resistant to the staff. They usually, go about their day when the plaza is needed for something or the crew needs to come in and do maintenance work and so forth. They haven't had any issues, to my knowledge, of any kind of violence or activity by the homeless folks that are there. In terms of outreach from the county, I have to get with HHS and others to get you more details, so I'm not aware of that.
Well, the context you just provided, I think, is really helpful in that they are accommodating, recognizing that homelessness is not a crime, and that they are working with county government for any activities that might be there, and being respectful of residents and county government as well. So I can follow up with you and Ms. Ruiz about some of that. Last point, last question real quick, Mr. Fosselman as well. I've been having lots of conversations with residents in Garrett Park about the old White Flint Mall. I know there's lots of conversations, but can you or Mr. Hartman, I know, who's also been doing a lot of work on that too, just say something publicly for those that are concerned that their pedestrian access to all of that shopping in Randolph Hills is not there right now.
Well, I don't know what Ken's done, but I'm being funny.
That's a joke, right?
Ken has been extremely helpful. So we've been working a little bit with the community and with you as well as Councilmember Friedson, and then Delegate Carr has shown some concern as well. Ken and I have met with the learner companies, their representatives. and also the county attorney. We've gone back and forth between the two entities in terms of some changes. There is an agreement underway. I'd say it's probably 99.9% finished. There were just some T's to be crossed, some I's to be dotted. But it boiled down to who's going to maintain the pathway during whether it's snow or there's a crack in the pavement or whatever. And that's, payment, staff, the whole thing. And then more importantly, security and liability. There have been a few unfortunate incidents on the property, which is why the learner companies are fencing it in. It's not to be a permanent thing, but it's just for the safety of the public. So it came down to liability, which we worked out a lot of the details. I'm sure you're aware of the county has a limit for incident of liability. So I think we have that all worked out, and we will let you know. I've been trying to keep your chief of staff, Valerie, as well as Ms. Gibson in the loop in terms of details.
Well, I appreciate that and know that a number of us have been working just to make sure that those residents have continued access. Walkability so important, pedestrian safety so important, and recognizing that the old White Flint Mall is private property, but we can work with them to increase access and safety for everybody. So look forward to continued updates, and thank you all for your work.
Council Member Katz, followed by Council Member Hucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I do know that I have a whole minute because we're at 1:38 right now. I just wanted to thank Greg for last night. As Craig mentioned, it really was an unbelievable evening. It was emotional. It was everything that a meeting could be. It was, and I do believe, as I kept saying, as sorry as we were, I was most appreciative the people were there, but we were sorry for the reason. I also wanted to thank very publicly. Not only do I hear from Greg, but I hear from Pete Fossman. I hear from people in our area quite a bit, the regional directors, quite a bit to let us know what's going on, and that in itself is a big help. As much as we think we know, they have additional ears. So I just wanted to thank them very much, and I think my minute is up. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Katz. Councilmember Hucker, last word.
Last word. I just wanted to second what Councilmember Novato said about Giroux's outstanding work. I think everybody's doing great work, but the role of the regional service coordinator and director is so sort of unique. And we have a lot of a really talented team here with experience in government and the private sector and the nonprofit leadership and elected office and other things. But it's a really unique sort of hybrid role. And I'm pretty sure Giroux's been in this role longer than anybody. And I've seen him up close in Silver Spring before even East County. And I don't want to give the impression that the good things that are happening in East County are easy at all. They've been very hard. A lot of his, everybody knows his energy, but also his expertise level at negotiating these things behind the scenes has been able to overcome delays with permitting services or delays with the planning, staff or other things. He's been able to negotiate it and be sort of a jack of all trades. And I would just suggest, Ms. Kassiri, using him in sort of a lead role, because we all have things to learn. He's very senior and very accomplished in this role. And I think I would love to see, to attend a meeting where he's talking through some of the secrets of the trade that he's learned in the last several years, because I think we would all benefit from that. I've seen it up close, and I think everybody would benefit from it. So I would just put that forward as a suggestion. Thanks.
It's a good one. You didn't mention he's pretty good at soccer player too. All right.
His head's big enough, man.
That's right. Thank you all so much for those robust updates. This is exactly why moving forward, we're going to not have all 5 of you report at the same time, so we can have an extended discussion with each of you regarding the myriad of issues that you're dealing with every day. But we do appreciate your continued dedication and leadership, and we look forward to the next Brown Bag Lunch with you guys soon. So with that, this particular Brown Bag Lunch session is adjourned. Colleagues, I'll see you in 5 minutes with the other link back to our session.
Thank you.
Thank you.